We have an exciting heavyweight class happening on the prelims of this card, and it is between Marcin Tybura and Mick Parkin. Now, I have covered a fair few Marcin Tybura fights in my time, and I thought he could have won the fight against Spivak. But I guess I'm not always right. What that fight exposed about Tybura is that maybe his jiu-jitsu is not as good as some others in the division, but he still has good grappling and can land some devastating elbows on the ground. As for this matchup, we have not seen much of Mick Parkin on the ground, and their experience with Tybura could play a big role in this fight because Tybura has held his ranking spot for quite a while and has the expertise to deal with adversity. At the same time, I feel that Mick Parkin may not have the same ability. So far, Mick Parkin has only really beaten up on the bad guys at heavyweight, so I don't know if he will be able to respond well. My pick for this fight will be Marcin Tybura to win by ground and pound TKO. We got Jordan Vucenic on Chris Duncan this weekend. It's the second fight on the main card of UFC London Fight Night, Leon Edwards vs Sean Brady. Jordan Vucenic made his UFC debut last year, I believe it was on the Umar Nurmagomedov card, and he was on short notice against Guram Kutataladze, who's also on this card. Jordan Vucenic arguably won the fight, winning in the first round, which should have been 10-8 when he dropped Guram, but was given 10-9. Judges gave rounds 1, 2, and 3 to Guram, but I think we should like rounds 1 and 3. He looked very fast, coming in on 1 week's notice. Jordan Vucenic is an excellent fighter. He has exceptional grappling too. That's what he's mostly known for, which is grappling. But he could contest Guram on the feet, which was pretty impressive. And he's one-on-one against lightweight prospect Paul Hughes, who just gave Usman Nurmagomedov a run for his money for the Bellator lightweight belt. Chris Duncan's decent. He has some good pop in his hands. But I think Jordan Vucenic will win this fight by submission in the second round just because I think he's the better fighter. He's very close to the rankings already just by looking at his skill. So yeah, I think a second round submission is possible for him, and he is one of the bigger lightweight prospects right now. Cool tattoos as well. If you want to make serious money this weekend at UFC Fight Night, Sean Brady vs Leon Edwards, it's time to put Kevin Holland in here. Probably Kevin Holland is taking on Gunnar Nelson this weekend, and somehow he's a plus 120 underdog, which doesn't make any sense. Gunnar Nelson has lost. He's old. He's a fat welterweight. He has a vast reach disadvantage versus Kevin Holland. Kevin Holland has an 81-inch reach, which is by far the biggest around that weight class. Now, on top of that, Gunnar Nelson has a 72-inch reach, which is tiny. So I don't know how anyone else is gonna be able to go around the range. He's a decent grappler. He's a pretty good grappler, honestly, means a lot of sight by submission, but I don't think he's gonna be able to get Kevin Holland to the ground. Kevin Holland is usually good at grappling, got submitted by Rainier de Ridder and overpowered by Roman Dolidze, but Gunnar Nelson, he's more of a jiu-jitsu guy than an MMA grappler. So I think it's gonna be more difficult for him to get his hands on Kevin Holland. I think Kevin Holland's gonna knock him out before he can do it. My prediction for this fight is gonna be Kevin Holland to win the fight by TKO. This is either a first round knockout or a second round knockout. I don't know which one it will be, but he's gonna win the fight. Jan Blachowicz is taking on Carlos Alberg this weekend. Missed the co-main event of UFC London Fight Night. Jan Blachowicz is coming off almost 2 years out of the cage. He had 2 nasty shoulder injuries and surgeries on them. I believe his last fight was against Alex Pereira, where he still looked perfect. But it's now almost been 2 years, and the guy's like 42 years old. Also, he was scheduled to fight Alexander Rakic at UFC 297 in Canada, but during his rehab process, I think he messed up his shoulder again, so he's been out ever since, and now we're at UFC 314. Carlos Alberg was knocking out a bunch of bombs toward the edge of the rankings and out of the rankings, like Alonzo Menefield with a TKO in 15 seconds. He also had a decently tough time against Volkan Ozdemir. That matchup showed the level of Alberg, and maybe he doesn't have the best gas tank, so I think there's a good shot there for Jan Blachowicz to tire him out and win those later rounds. That might include him in me parlay. He's plus 185, he has a great jab and a strong leg kick. Alberg is from City Kickboxing and trains with Volk, but he does not have a very good ability to check kicks. Overall, I think the old crafty vet Jan Blachowicz is going to win this fight by decision or late TKO at the young age of 42 years old. Leon Edwards is taking on Sean Brady this weekend, and I don't think Sean Brady has a chance of winning unless he turns into prime Khabib. I do not know how he is even a favorite against a guy who stopped grapplers like Kamaru Usman and Colby Covington. We were talking like he would stuff the takedowns of Islam and completely butcher him on the feet. But now we are at a point where we think that a guy who beat up a washed-up guy in Gilbert Burns, who has lost his last 3 fights, is now up next to be a challenger. I mean, the guy was TKO'd by Bilal on the feet, which is so embarrassing. Speaking of that, Sean Brady was also a favorite in that fight, but he got smoked entirely and embarrassed on his feet. So, I would like to see what happens when he gets his first couple of takedowns stuffed and realizes he will have to stand and bang with him. My prediction for this fight is going to be Leon Edwards to win by decision 49-46 and show why he was a solid champion. It will still be a very boring decision nevertheless.